Hey, good morning, everybody. Very early good morning on this Sunday, known as Conference Championship Sunday. But I'm not here to talk about the NFC or AFC championships. No, no, no. I'm here to talk about TNA. Now, I've done a couple of on-screen videos where I talked about how TNA so far is not doing so well in 2014. How basically 2014 is not starting out well for TNA. Now, I did kind of try to give some positive output, if you will, on what they're currently doing in the company. I mean, one, they're trying to start out a new era, a new real era with new stories and rivalries based off reality, based off real life, if you will. And then also I try to give them credit with the fact that, yes, they have signed the American Wolves, Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards, and probably they're going to do something with them. It looks like they are with this whole mystery investor storyline, which, in my opinion, is not a knock. It's not just a knock at Jeff Jarrett, as some backstage at TNA apparently are thinking. I think it's more along the lines of TNA's own version of the anonymous general manager storyline in WWE. That's my opinion. It's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. But I did say in that video, in that near 29-minute video, I said basically, I hope and pray you guys TNA. I told them in that video, I hope you guys have a tremendous year. I hope you guys have a stellar year. I hope you guys have a successful year financially, growth-wise, and attendance-wise. I hope you guys have a great year. But unfortunately, from what Richard Gray was shown on his Twitter account, and he shared on his Twitter account. Now, for some of you that don't know who Richard Gray is, Richard Gray runs WrestlingNewsWorld.com, and he showed a picture of the recent attendance. I believe it was Mobile, Alabama. I'm not really sure, for a TNA live event. And if you thought 300 to 600 people attending at a high school gymnasium where Sting was headlining in one of the main event matches, if you think that was bad, maybe good in some people's eyes, but if you think that was bad, and if you think maybe getting 1,000 and about 1,200 people for another event the following night, which is a little better, not much, but just probably on average for TNA, then this picture that you're going to see, if I can put it up here, is really going to make you just go like, what the blankety... It's going to basically make you ask, what the blankety blank is going on at TNA? I mean, I don't know where this was at, what venue this was at Mobile, Alabama, but oh my God. Now, I know some people, especially the diehard TNA fans, with all due respect, I know you guys are going to probably say, oh, well, that was probably at the beginning of the show. It really wasn't filled up just yet. Well, if you look at I can't really tell who it is in the ring in this picture, but I can say this. If this is your attendance, if this is an attendance that you're okay with, then no offense, TNA diehards, but you really need to reevaluate your company's product and your company's presentation. Because this is one of the problems I've talked about in my videos, and other people have talked about. Richard Gray has talked about it. People at No DQ have talked about it. Off the Rope Show has talked about it. Don Tony and Kevin Castle have talked about it. Solid Monster has talked about it. The British Fist have talked about it. The Laxman has talked about it. You know, a lot of wrestling fans, insiders, just the whole wrestling community, the whole IWC and YWC wrestling community, fans and insiders combined, have all said the same thing. And that is TNA needs to do a better job at presenting the product, at promoting the product. I mean, here's a grand example. Somebody commented on Richard's Twitter here and said that they live in Mobile, Alabama, and they heard nothing about a TNA wrestling event, which basically indicates if they had heard about a TNA wrestling event, they probably would have attended. Here's what's crazy. TNA, as I have said, has all the ability in the world. They have all the ability. They have all the potential to succeed. Every single person has said this. Off the Rope Show Central, the British Fist, the Wrestling Gurus, Bill Apter, Richard Gray himself, LordsOfPain.net, the Bleacher Report, everybody has come out and said that TNA has the potential to be great, has the potential to succeed, has the potential to be that alternate second option. But yet, when you have attendances like this, in what obviously is a much bigger arena and venue than a high school gymnasium, when you have attendance like this is not a good way to help your product. This is not a good way to present your product. This is not a good way to say, hey, TNA's here. Come and see it. You know, it's almost like those people at TNA, the insiders at TNA, the people working in TNA, the bookers, the creative staff, the officials, all of them backstage, some of them obviously don't know how to book or promote an event. And you know what's sad about this? A few years ago, TNA was all the rage. It was. A few years ago. Matter of fact, I'll go a little further. The year before I came back here to California, the year before I moved back here to California, in fact, I'm looking at it right now. I am looking at it right now. But on Saturday, April 29th, it was, I think, 2006, I believe. Saturday, I believe, trying to see here, 2006, I'm pretty sure of it. Yeah. ...2006 or 2007, I can't really remember. I think it was 2006. But anyway, I remember that when that event was going to happen on Saturday, April 26th and Saturday, April 29th in Lawrence, Kansas, about 2006, 2007, around that time. I remember when that event happened. Not only did I get a VIP, did I get a VIP pass to go see the phenomenal AJ Styles in person and actually be part of a Q&A with AJ. And AJ himself called me the man of 1,000 questions because I went in there to go take a picture with him. But the point is, Central States Wrestling 6 to 7 years ago did a much better job at promoting AJ Styles at their CSW event that evening than TNA is done in the past few years. And this was all due, folks, to the fact that people knew who AJ Styles was because at the time TNA was still associated with the NWA. And this was around 2006, 2007, I believe. They were still associated with I think it was 2000. No, yeah, it was 2006, 2007, I believe. And they were still associated with the NWA. They still were. They were still associated with the National Wrestling Alliance. And any person that they brought in at that time, 2006, 2007 from TNA, people knew who they were. They did. And again, what's sad about this is at a time TNA obviously was very heavily promoted. People knew when a TNA event was going to be in their town. They knew when TNA was going to be in their town, obviously. And that's all due, unfortunately, I hate to say, due to the association with the National Wrestling Alliance. I know, it sounds crazy. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. But my point is this, folks. My point is this. Look at the difference in a 7-year span. It's not very good. Not very good at all. It's almost like as soon as they stopped associating with the NWA, they slowly started to go downhill a bit. And I don't know what it is. I mean, I know honestly, and I'm not trying to be biased here because I'm a Hogan fan, because I'm a Hulkamaniac. But I know for certain it wasn't all due to the fact that this sudden downward spiral was not always due to the fact that Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff came on board. I know for a fact it was not all on them. Yes, they do take some of the blame, but it was not always all on them. But I realize that there is more to this than people are letting on. There is. There is more to this than people are letting on. And I know it's not just because they brought in Mick Foley, brought in Booker T and all that. It's all due to something. It's all due to TNA's backstage atmosphere. And what's ever going down in the TNA offices in Nashville. You know, it's like TNA in the past 7 years, and most recently in the past few years, have just really not done so well. And again, honestly, I think TNA needs to really work things out if they want to get through this year. Because like I said in several of my videos, in fact, I said this in my first video. I said if TNA doesn't shape up by the end of this year, they're barely going to make it into 2015. They barely are. And even if they do, by the time 2015 rolls around, you might as well put a DOA tag on their toes, on the toe of TNA, a DOA tag on their toe, because TNA is going to be dead on arrival in 2015 if they don't get their crap together. I mean, how hard is it to promote an event, a local event in a town that you're going to be in, or at least in the vicinity of a place you're going to be in? TNA's probably doing what they can to promote Lockdown, but that's a pay-per-view. What about your live events? Huh? I know when WWE comes around here to the Central Valley in Northern California, they promote the heck out of it. They say, hey, come into the Aqua Arena, come into the Sleep Train Arena, or come into the Stockton Arena, or come into the Oracle in Oakland, California, or come into the Cow Palace in San Francisco. Come see live WWE action. See John Cena versus Randy Orton for the World Heavyweight Championship, blah, blah, blah. They promote the heck out of it, and that gives people the opportunity to know, okay, this is when it's going to be, knowing where it's going to be and when it's going to happen. It gives them that opportunity. Heck, a few years ago, when Walnut Grove Elementary School opened up, one of the first events they had was a wrestling show. It was an all-Christian wrestling show. And I don't know if they had a good attendance, but they promoted it. They promoted the heck out of it. And I don't know if they got a good attendance out of it or not, but if a elementary school that just opened up a few years ago can host an independent wrestling event, even if it's an all Christian wrestling event, and probably get a good attendance, then why can't TNA? I mean, what is going on? I mean, you do not book a live event in a venue in Mobile, Alabama, without promoting it right, because if you don't promote it right, you get this. I mean, it's just like Bound for Glory, but worse. And I hate to say that, and I know a lot of TNA fans that support the company. Believe me, I'm a TNA fan too. It's just that I'm a fan that doesn't want to see this company go down. I don't want to see this company die. Because here's what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen. A lot of the talent they got on their roster right now, a lot of the talent that they have, and the talent they're trying to bring in, if this company goes under by the time 2015 comes around, not saying it will, but if it gets down to the point that even those working in the wrestling business are not going to want to, working and competing in the wrestling business are not going to want to have anything to do with it, here's what's going to happen. A lot of the talent, let's say, for the sake of argument, but let's say TNA does eventually have no choice but to close its doors. Let's say that day comes. Not saying it will, but let's say that day comes. There's a lot of superstars, a lot of knockouts that are going to be without a place to go. Well, actually, they will have a place to go, but they're not going to like it. Some are not going to like it because the only real place they will have left to go from a national standpoint, from a national worldwide standpoint, the only other place they'll have left to go is WWE, which, like TNA, is on a national, if not a worldwide basis. Basically is a nationally, worldwide known product. Not, TNA may not be as known as WWE around the world, but still, there are countries around the world, fans around the world that do know who and what TNA is. But still, you're going to have a lot of superstars and knockouts that are still going to want to compete on that national, worldwide level, and the only place they can go is WWE. And you know how WWE is going to be, whether you like the company or not. They're going to say, okay, you want to wrestle for us? You want to work with us? Fine. But here's what you're going to have to do. And they're going to take a lot. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to have a lot of the knockouts. Some of the knockouts, like a Madison Rayne. Like a Velvet Sky. Like a Lady Tapa. Like an ODB. You're going to have all these ladies, mostly Sky and Rain and Lady Tapa. You're going to have them go down to NXT, work at NXT, work in the Performance Center, and maybe even have the names changed. So that when they do get called up to WWE's main roster, yeah, you'll know who they are, but they won't be who you once knew in TNA. Instead, they'll be under some different name. Same with a guy like Magnus, the TNA's current world champion. Let's say again someday, pray to God it doesn't happen. Pray to God it does not happen. But let's say, for the sake of argument, it does happen. TNA has to fold and close its doors. Here you have a guy like Magnus has got the look and everything. WWE's going to say, yeah, you got the look, you got the size, you're exactly what we're looking for. But we're going to have to send you down to NXT and put you in the Performance Center for a while. Oh, and when we do, and oh, by the way, you're not going to be Magnus anymore. You're going to be this guy, and this is going to be your gimmick. I mean, for all someone like Magnus knows, if that day happens and he ends up in WWE because of it, and he ends up in NXT because of it, knowing how the WWE works, knowing how Vince McMahon thinks and Triple H sometimes thinks, they might say, hey, he had that gladiator. They might think, hey, he had that gladiator gimmick when he was first starting in TNA. Let's make him a gladiator. And that's what's going to happen. He's going to be stuck with the gladiator gimmick. You take a look at the Brosmans. Here's what's going to happen. They might keep them. They might be an exception. They might say, yeah, Jesse Goddard's got the look. Robbie E's a good talent. We can keep them the way they are. But, hey, you know what? Maybe we could change them around. Make them surfer dudes. Basically what I'm saying here as an example is this is what's going to happen to a lot of these talents on the TNA roster if TNA doesn't get their act together, and hopefully not just barely or just using a walker or a cane, just barely wobble, at less than maybe 25% into 2015. If they don't want this to happen, if TNA fans don't want this to happen, then TNA knows, and the TNA fans know, that they got to get their act together and start performing at a higher level and promoting at a higher level. You know what this tells me about this whole not promoting the way they should? It tells me that financially they can't even afford to put commercial spots out if the finances are hurting so bad. I mean, for goodness sake, TNA, you are potentially a great company. You have shown that you could be a tremendous company. You've shown that you can get people talking about you and supporting you. But you're not doing it. You're not doing what it takes to get people behind you. I look down right now and I look at a DVD spindle full of DVDs, and on top of it, I've got a DVD known as TNA's 50 Greatest Moments. And this is at a time when TNA was still doing good. 50 great moments. And underneath there, I have TNA's... underneath here, let's see what I have. I have 50 Greatest Moments. I have TNA's Best of the Bloodiest Brawls. I have TNA's Slammiversary. I have TNA's DVD on Sting, Return of an Icon. I have TNA Lockdown, 2007. I have TNA's DVD on Christopher Daniels, Heaven Sent, Hell Bound. I have TNA, The History of TNA, Year 1. TNA Bound for Glory, 2006. TNA Lockdown, 2006. You see the years I'm talking about when these DVDs came out? These came out at a time when 7, 8 years ago when TNA was doing good. And that's when TNA was still associated with the NWA, in a sense. They were still associated. So you know what I think's got to... So you know what? If TNA wants to make it through this year, they not only need to start working more wisely, promoting better, and start balancing financially, because I pray they do have, like I said in my other video, in my previous video, my most recent video about them, I said I pray and hope you guys have a tremendous year. I really do. But if TNA is going to keep acting like this, then I don't know. I pray and hope they end this year on a high note. I really do. I hope they grow tremendously financially and roster-wise. I really do. I hope they grow attendance-wise. But if they keep up stuff like this, they're not going to make it. They're not. And even if they do, it's like I said, they're going to just wobble into 2015 at less than maybe 25%. So so if they don't want that, and I know the TNA fans don't want that, and the wrestling fans in general don't want that, then TNA needs to get their act together, needs to get the stuff together and say, guys, it's time to start doing what's right for this company. We need to start promoting our live events right. We need to start booking more correctly. I mean, if you're TNA and you know that you're only going to average maybe between 300 to 600 people at most, or 300 to 1,000 people at most, then here's what you do. You book the smaller places. Even if you have to say, hey, for the first time in history, a pay-per-view is going to be at even if you have to say, hey, for the first time in history, a pay-per-view is going to take place inside a high school gymnasium, then do it. Have the pay-per-view at a high school gymnasium that could seat maybe 1,000 people. Do it. It makes you look good. You know, I mean, look, I don't know what your attendance was for recent one-night onlys that you had in the New York area, in Poughkeepsie, or in the New York and Massachusetts area for Hardcore Justice 2 and Old School. I don't know exactly what the attendance was, but if it was a decent attendance, then those are the kind of places you need to start booking at. You need to start booking in those places. You need to go to the theaters. You need to go to the halls, if you will. You need to go to the small college gymnasiums or the high school gymnasiums or middle school gymnasiums. You need to do that. Heck, I noticed that during the summer, you guys get a great attendance for your base brawls. Well, guess what? During the spring and the summer, why don't you do that more often? Why don't you say, hey, we're going to have more base brawls because it brings people out. Why don't you do that? You get a good financial attendance there. These are just things I think TNA needs to work on. You need to not book in the big arenas. If you're going to book in bigger arenas, you better be promoting the heck out of it. Promote it months in advance, saying, hey, TNA is going to be here live. And promote it week after week after week after week after week. Month after month. If you have to pay for commercial time during a WWE Raw or SmackDown. And say, hey, come into this city, come into your town, TNA live event in this arena. I guarantee you, if you promote your live event during a WWE Raw or SmackDown television taping, and people are watching on USA or Sci-Fi, you're going to get people to go to that event. Because they're going to be like, oh, wait a minute. TNA Wrestling's advertising doing WWE. Maybe this TNA is getting better. Let's go check it out. The point is, TNA needs to shape up, or they're going to ship out before 2015's over. Yeah, they'll make it through 2014. There's no doubt about it. 2015, I don't know. I mean, you have Dixie Carter telling the people at TNA, telling Spike TV and the board of directors or whatever you want to call them at TNA, hey, don't worry. I'm confident we can work something out with Universal Studios and have TNA Impact broadcast somewhere on the property. Yeah. Where? The parking lot? If I'm TNA, I would do what OVW has done. Because I remember OVW. You want to know what's made OVW last so long? Is it's booked itself at some of the Six Flag resorts. It has. It's found an area in the park at Six Flags, and they have had events there. If TNA wants to book and continue working with Universal Studios, guess what? That's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to book it inside the park somewhere and say, hey, do you got a place around here we could book TNA where people can come and watch it? Now, I don't know if maybe they're thinking they could pull something off like WCW did with Disney. If they can, then all power to them. But if they can't, then I don't know. Again, TNA needs to really plan better for the rest of 2014. That's all I can say, folks. That's all really I could say. I mean, after seeing this picture, even if I was there live, even if I lived in Alabama and I was there live, I would say this. And I hope to God somebody did a YouTube video on this that went to this event. But if I was somebody and I was doing a YouTube video after coming out of this event, or filming around and showing what the attendance looked like as I was leaving, I'd be saying in the video, this was a good show, just very, very poor attendance, lowest I think TNA's ever had. And that speaks volumes. So TNA better get their crap together. That's all I could say. Because once again, like I said in previous two videos, 2014 is not starting out good for this company. And that's a fact. Comment below. Let me know what you guys think. I'll talk to y'all later.